Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem video. This is a postmortem of my Blitz chess game number 29, where I was black, played the King's Indian defense, got into it via a slightly unusual move order, and I went on to organize the typical kind of King's Indian kingside attack, and managed to finish up with a nice mate in 3. So let's see how it all happened, and also various ways to improve, because my attack was not precise, I guess is the way to put it. So my opponent started off with knight f3, and I replied knight f6. This is sort of keeping all my options open. I don't know if he's planning to play d4 or c4, or maybe bring another knight out, or maybe go g3. There's all kinds of different moves that. So white and black are both very flexible here, but he goes for the d4, and now I could just play d5. Go into a normal queen's pawn type opening, or even e6 or g6. But I played d6, thinking, well, I might get an e5 later to challenge the d pawn here. He goes c4, and I go g6. So now I'm setting up this King's Indian type pawn structure, at least. It's not yet King's Indian defense. But when he plays knight c3 and I go bishop g7, he goes e4. This is a pretty classical King's Indian setup. Now the normal move here to continue in main line of the King's Indian would be to castle, but I was probably a little confused by the move order. Just to show you guys, normally you would play castle here. He would go bishop e2. This is the classical line. Black goes e5 first, white castles, and then black plays knight f6, and then the pawn comes forward, the knight goes to here. Eventually this knight gets out of the way, or back here or over there, and then the pawn comes forward, and you continue on with the kingside attack from there. This is called the Mar del Plata variation, and yeah, it's the most common way of playing the King's Indian, and the idea is to get the knight to c6 first, and then to move it to e7 after the pawn has been pushed. The way I played it, let's go back to the game. Well, I started the knight maneuver before I'd castled, which is probably not right. And then the knight is not, this is not the best square for the knight. It's better to go here and then to here. So, but that means you have to play e5 first. You want to castle before you play e5. So that's why the other move order is kind of the preferred move order. But this is an alternate way of playing, actually. This is a known line to place the knight here on d2. And white can continue classically with bishop e2, but he went bishop d3, and we are pretty much out of the opening book at this point. So let's go the way the game was, and I'm going to switch to just the notation tab here. And you can look at the Houdini evaluation of the position. It gives white the normal opening advantage, which is maintained for a lot of this. We're basically following the normal plans here. The bishop on e3 is a little bit unusual. It allows the harassment by the knight coming to g4 and harassing that bishop, and usually white doesn't want to trade that bishop for a knight, so usually he has to move it around, and you'll see that happening. But he plays d5 first, and then I throw in my knight g4 move, and he pushes the bishop here to attack my queen, and I stick a pawn in the way and force him to move the bishop again. So go on a few more moves. Let's see, I move my queen to unpin that pawn, and he moves his bishop back to g3, and I push ahead with f5. So this is still, you see, kind of a balanced position with white having a normal opening advantage. Black has wasted some time going from f7 to f6 to f5 because of having to deal with the threats of the bishop. But on the other hand, the bishop has wasted some time too, coming out here and going around like that. And it's not clear if this is the best square for the bishop anyway. It's subject to harassment there later when I push f4. So so as a result, this knight is maybe a little out of place on my turn. So basically, both sides have wasted an equal amount of time, leaving the position kind of balanced. So he goes in with knight g5, threatening to come to this square, which would be pretty strong for white. So I want to stop that. And it's interesting that along here, the computer likes black's position, but not for long. I eventually play a move the computer doesn't like, and yes, that was it. So I think, was it here? In one of these places, the computer had suggested the move a5. Maybe it wasn't here because it likes bishop f6 better here. But a5 is an interesting idea. If you want to keep the knight on the c5 square, then you want to slow down this push from white, because white is planning to push b4 and get a queenside attack going, and that's his compensation for black's kingside attack. So this knight is going to have to move out of the way, but you can slow it down by pushing a5, and that's a useful idea, particularly in positions when the knight is here. It was this move, yeah. So the a5 shows up as the top move at this point. So that would be a way to keep the approval of the computer. But I was playing directly for a kingside attack, so I wasn't worried. And my plan was to retreat the knight somewhere, maybe here, although that blocks the bishop if he pushes b4. So he goes h3, attacking my knight. Yeah, both of us right now are concerned with the kingside action and not worrying too much about the queenside. And he has to worry, I should point out, that when I make this move h6, I'm just threatening to trap that bishop who has no exit squares. So he has to prepare some kind of exit strategy for that bishop. And so his idea here was to chase my knight, and then when the knight moves, he can exchange the bishop for the knight. Because really the bishop, even now, after that pawn move, has no squares to escape to. So he really didn't have time to get the queenside attack going yet. But he gets to it pretty soon. In fact, right now. So b4. And I get my knight in the way of the bishop. So I'm going to have to move this knight again, but it probably wants to come over to the king side and help in the attack anyway. But the evaluation is still in white's favor here. So, and white's continuing with a logical queenside attack, and I'm continuing on the king side. And you see this a lot in King's Indian games, where the computer actually doesn't approve of black's attack until it sees far enough ahead to recognize that things are not all so rosy. So the evaluations tend to favor white early on in the King's Indian, but as the attack proceeds, sometimes it swings in the favor of black if black is playing well, or if white slips up somehow. But here, queen g6, yeah, you can see queen g6 was a definite mistake. So here's how white can get the advantage in this game in a significant way. So the queen g6 move left this c7 pawn undefended. The queen had been sitting here and defending that pawn. So now let's show this variation. Knight can take it, the pawn, and it attacks the rook, so the rook moves. And then the knight can go to e8, attacking this rook. And I don't know why the rook can't go to this square or to this square because they're guarded by pawns, but I don't know why the rook can't go to this square. Knight takes d6, it says. Yeah, that's defended by the pawn, so he can do that. And if I keep trying to preserve the rook, playing, say, rook e7, queen to b3, or knight takes c8, and d6. Okay, so the queenside pawns come through. So this is the danger in the King's Indian. It's like a race, and if white's attack breaks through first, he can actually come in on the queenside and then start attacking and disrupting black's kingside pieces. So that's the danger in playing the King's Indian. But it's a very double-edged position, and white has to strike at exactly the right moment. So after queen g6, my opponent played queen c2, not as accurate. And even though this shows still an advantage to white, he never really has such a good opportunity as that. That was his best shot. And now my attack starts rolling in, and he's got to pay attention to these threats. So the computer recommended move is h takes g4. I was sort of expecting that. Bishop takes, and I'm threatening to win that knight there, but apparently he has ways to defend with queen d3. So I would still be happy in playing on there, but it might be the kind of position that white can hold. But as often happens in the King's Indian, it's hard to find exactly the right move. My opponent played knight h4, which is the second best choice, but already this is at least a draw and maybe better for black. So I played queen h5. Let's see, the computer recommended here queen g5. Yeah, I thought about queen g5 at first, and then for some reason played queen h5. I don't know exactly what I was thinking, but anyway, queen h5. And if he had played g3 here, that helps sustain the knight. What white tried here was knight f5, and after I exchange off that knight, that's one less defender on the king side here, and white's situation is getting critical now. So I proceed by taking the h-pawn, and queen d1 is a recommended move here to try and hold the defense. That probably, well, according to the computer, it forces a trade of queens, but leaves black with an advantage. So you really don't want to trade queens and be at a disadvantage also. So that's desperation. But what's interesting is I missed this move. In this position, I was thinking of taking or pushing the pawn with check, and I just missed the idea of queen f3, which is simple and strong, as Chess Explained likes to say. The queen is threatening checkmate here, and there's no way to defend. In fact, it gives queen e4, and I can just take the queen there. So that's pretty much game over. I don't know why I didn't think of that during the game. That's pretty much right there. I played h2 check instead. And now with king h1, I guess there's some drawing chances. And I follow up with f3, which I'm threatening to bring the queen to h3 and then to g2 mate. And so now computer rates this as still about even. But after knight takes c7, so the right move at the wrong time, suddenly there's a mate in 3. And I found that during the game, although I found it kind of piece by piece. I didn't realize when I first played here. I knew I was threatening mate, but when he played the rook to g1, I thought that was defending. But this is a pretty instructive type of mate. Obviously, he was sacrificing the rook and hoping to get this rook back, because the knight's threatening this rook and then be even in material at least. But when I take that rook, he can't take it. He was probably planning to take back with his rook, but his king is in check, and so he's forced to take it with the king, and then it's mate anyway. So he resigned at this point. But the instructive point is when the king is in a double check, when there's two pieces that are checking the king, then the king has to move. There's no other option, because you can't take both pieces with a single move. You can only take one of them, and you can't block both pieces with a single move. You can only block one of them. So there's no other choice to escape the mate, but the king has to move. And the only legal move for the king is to take this queen, and then queen g2 is mate. So that was the end of the game. Pretty exciting. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And if you have any comments, leave them in the section below. And I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.